Hi, and here we are again in our neighborhoods, our March edition today. You're in for another treat with Martin Sauls, who has a whole story on the history of Bluffton and what a character he is. But you know what's really exciting is what he has to share with us and what Bluffton used to be. So I hope you enjoy.
In those days, you knew everybody that lived in Bluffton, everybody that lived in Hardyville, everybody that lived in Ridgeland, because we were so isolated down here. If we needed anything at all, we had to get dressed up and go to town, and that was going to Savannah. And let me tell you, you couldn't wear a t-shirt and jeans or whatever to go down on Broughton Street. Boy, you had to have on your Sunday best. And we all, enjoyed going. But thank you so much for being here. I can't begin to tell you how much your presence has improved the quality of life in the low country of South Carolina. Jasper, which is, I think we're in Jasper. Yeah. Always was in a contest to see which was the poorest county in the state of South Carolina. It was always between us and McCormick County. McCormick is about midways of the Savannah River between here and North Carolina. And Jasper, it seemed like always won that contest, sort of going away. But now, geez, I can't believe Jasper County has a Porsche dealership. Of course, when everybody found out that Porsche was coming, the biggest question in Jasper County was, did they make pickups? But I think there's one or two people in Jasper now that actually own a Porsche. So that's really something. But it's you guys have made such a difference for us. I think back when Del Webb was first looking for a place to put Sun City, this location was, I think, one of four. Might have been five, but I know definitely one of four. And they sent, their representative out to meet with all the local people, and they had barbecues and they had parties and everything. And I'll never forget the guy that they sent to talk to us. His name was Jackie Gleason. And of course, that was a big joke. Everybody was saying Ralph Cramden's coming to Jasper County. But boy, he told us what to expect, and I really think it has exceeded what they told us. And he told us about all the communities, all the builders and developers that followed Del Webb around. And man, just look what's around us here. Where we are now, there were 2 hunting clubs It was the Jasper Hunting Club, which was this side of the road. And it was strictly people from Jasper County. On the south side of 278 was the Bill John Hunting Club. And another name for it on the Jasper side was the Monkey John Hunting Club. And believe it or not, the name was well deserved and earned because we used to have a monkey farm here that was part of the federal government's program. They raised the monkeys right down here close to Pinckney Island. And of course, you know, I knew some of the employees, and there were a lot of monkeys got away. But it was, in those days, it was so different here. I can't even begin to tell you that there were armed guards at I-95. If you were coming this way, you better be one of the crowd, because you didn't come this way. You had to find another way around because nobody got through here. The only thing, go a couple of years, the only thing that was really going around here, any kind of development, was Rose Hill. And Rose Hill, you know, it's really struggled over the years, but they're doing really well now. And it's a beautiful place. And my experience with Rose Hill was with a guy by the name of John Sturgeon. John Sturgeon, he lived in Ridgeland. And understand, Ridgeland was the center of everything in those days. Ridgeland had the only hospital around. And so that was a big draw. And had a really good team of doctors that worked there. And John Sturgeon, he had family in Okatee Club. Okatee Club, the biggest plantation in Jasper and Beaufort counties. And one does not join Okatee Club. You have to be born into Okatee Club. And so, I don't know exactly who it was, but they let John open up a building supply place right there, almost at the front gate of Okatee Club. And so he was well connected. I just don't know the connection, but I have to describe John to you. He was about, I don't know, I used to be 5'10", but at 80 years old, I think I'm about 5'7" now. But anyway, John, he was a head taller than me. And I'm thinking he was at least, I want to say 6'4". He always wore double-breasted suits and a bow tie. And so, you know, I picked up some stuff from him. I idolized him, you know. And he was kind of a cross between Cary Grant and Thomas Magnum. So let me tell you, when John Sturgeon walked in the room, whatever was going on stopped. I mean, boy, you know, the ladies just swooned. And of course, we men, you know, we always be just like him. And his shoulders must have been a yard wide and a little old narrow waist. So he was really something in a double-breasted suit. So at this time, the Rose Hill Plantation was owned by some owners from the north. And well-to-do people with money, you know, to run a big plantation like that. And they had a daughter who was just such a nice lady. We were all so fond of her. And she was so pleasant, and she knew all of our names and was always glad to see us and want to know how our families and all were doing. Well, when she saw John Sturgeon, it was all over. And she had to have him. And I can tell you, John Sturgeon was not one to pass up an opportunity. So, they got married. And they, she was big into horses, and of course, we didn't know it, but so was John. And so they made a good couple. And we would have Kentucky Derby parties and invite all the legislators and everybody to come, and it was a big time. But after a while, you kind of get to know somebody, and she kind of found out that John Sturgeon was a lot of show, but not much go. So she booted him out. Well, some people are just lucky. She booted him out and filed for divorce. In the meantime, she had not been feeling well, and we were all so concerned about her. And I hate to tell you this because it's kind of the low point of the story, but she passed away. And we had a nice ceremony for her and shipped her back up north for burial. And but then, voila, John Sturgeon now owns Rose Hill Plantation. But the thing about it was, John Sturgeon, he had land, he had property, but he had no cash. So that's a problem. And so one day he called the funeral home and he got Daddy and he said, "Send little Martin down here." So I took off. I pretty much did what he told me. And that's you said something about my wife said he'll be there. I'm happily married. Some guys never realize that, and they spend their whole lives miserable. Just do what they say and I tell people, as long as my wife lets me have a gun and a dog, I don't care. But anyway, so John Sturgeon called me. Now I came and he said, "Look here," says, "we need to go to the airport in Savannah." And I said, "Okay, let's go." So we loaded up in the company station wagon, and I says, "Well, what are we going to Savannah for?" He says, "Well, we got to go to the airport." He says, "Richard Burton is flying into Savannah Airport, and we got to go meet him." And I said, "Richard Burton, is he from Bluffton?" And he said, "Well, no, not exactly." So anyway, we headed on to Savannah Airport, and sure enough, Richard Burton got off the plane. No Elizabeth Taylor, just Richard Burton. I never got to meet her. So anyway, we came back to the plantation house, and John had them fix a big plate of fried chicken and butter beans and rice. And man, that dude gobbled up those butter beans and rice. I think that might have been the first time he'd ever had that. So, John had no cash, but he had the ring. And when we took Richard Burton back to the airport the next day, he was $2 million lighter on the hip. And that's where that ring came from. You've heard about that diamond that he bought Elizabeth Taylor? That's where that ring came from. I'm probably getting close to my time. I'm going to tell you one more story. I've told you how little was going on here in the old days. There wasn't much for people to do, for young people especially. The only time there was any population in Bluffton was in June, July, and August. And that was when people from Savannah would come over, people from Estill, Hampton, Fairfax, Allendale. They would come down to Bluffton, and you know, the little bungalows down at Alljoy and everything. And they would stay, and there used to be a camp, right, not too far back this side of the cemetery, on 46. And they had dormitories, and they had a big space, you know, where your band could set up and practice. And boy, that was a big deal. There was a lot of people that would come down for that. But the one hot spot in the whole place was Lonnie's Limbo Room. The Limbo Room was on Calhoun Street, down close, you know, you got the Methodist Church on the left and you got Church of the Cross on the right. Well, the Limbo Room was a frame dwelling on the same side of the street as the Methodist Church. It probably was maybe as big as this room, but may not have been either. And it was just just a big white frame building, and there were no windows or anything. To get any air in the building, it had flaps, and you just prop the flaps up with your broomsticks, and so you could get a cross ventilation. Well, on Friday and Saturday nights, a group from Paris Island used to make the trip around and come to the Limbo Room. And the guy's name was Bill Botterford. He was a Marine stationed on Paris Island. And I'm telling you, he played a great guitar and he could sing, and we all enjoyed when he came, and he had a bunch of his fellow Marines there. One fella playing bass, another playing lead and guitar and drummer and everything. And the Limbo Room would be so crowded until we could not put all the amps and everything and the speakers in the room. They had to go up on the roof. And man, when that place got rocking and rolling, I mean, you could hear the Limbo Room clean to Pritchardville. It was loud. Well, the only drawback to the Limbo Room was the fact that Mayor Haywood lived right next door. Yeah. And Mayor Haywood, you know, pretty lenient, pretty liberal, not a problem, but Mrs. Haywood, let me tell you something, she was a very prim and proper lady. And she loved her flowers, and I mean, her yard was immaculate. Well, about 10 or 10:30, when everybody's really rocking and rolling, and the beer is flowing and everything, and you had to bring your own. Lonnie Beach, who was the proprietor of the Limbo Room, he couldn't get a liquor license, so you had to, he sold the chasers and everything, but he sold no booze. And about 10 or 10:30, everybody would kind of be feeling good, and it was kind of a mixed crowd there, and somebody would bump into somebody, and next thing you know, they pushing and shoving and rolling around on the floor, but we'd always get them up off the floor and get them outside. Only problem was, the next thing, they were rolling around in Mrs. Haywood's flower bed, which she did not care for that. This particular night, boy, she came out and she was fired up, and she broke it up, and she got the mayor out there, and she looked at him. She said, "I want these people locked up now." And Mayor Haywood, he was kind of like me. Sometimes I get excited and I'll stutter. Well, the poor mayor, he couldn't get a word out edgewise. And she told him, "You call Sam Paget right now and get him down here." So he called Sam Paget. Sam Paget was Bluffton's police chief. He was also Bluffton's police force. And so we just had one policeman. And Sam, he was such I've often said that I will pay dearly one day for what I always did to that poor old man. And I'll tell you, he's got me back, believe me. So anyway, they went inside and they called Sam, and here he comes. He had a white 49 four-door Ford sedan, and it was a flathead V8. And he had a light on, his red light was on top. It fastened to the top of his car with a suction cup. And to get it to go around and around, it had a wire that plugged into the cigarette lighter. So here he comes, you know, and that light going around and around. And I don't know if any of y'all old enough to remember, but you know, you used to get these sirens that you put on your bicycle, and you pulled the chain and it rubbed against your tire and it went zzz, zzz, zzz. I don't know how he managed to do that, but he duplicated that sound exactly. So here he comes, he pulls up to the, where we were all standing around there, and he jumped out and he looked at Mayor Haywood and he said, "What's happened to all these lovely children?" And the mayor told him, says, "Well, you know, they were out here fighting," and he says, "I want them locked up." So Sam goes over and he opens the back door and he starts pushing them in the back seat. Well, it was a four-door car. And I mean, just as soon as he pushed them in, they were out there. They were done. He looked at me and he says, "Son, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I'm just helping Lonnie." And he says, "I'm going to tell your mama." And so anyway, he never did. He was just fooling with me. So anyway, you know, by then it wasn't even midnight. So I don't know who in the crowd says, somebody told him, says, "You know, it's too early for us to go home. We need to do something. We need to go someplace." And it might have been me. I said, "Man, let's ride over to the Bamboo Ranch." And they had colorful names in those days, you know. The Bamboo Ranch was a night spot on 17 over in Port Wentworth, Georgia. And I looked back there, and here comes the judge. And the judge says, "I want to go too." And I said, "Judge, I am so sorry, but boy, we are just jam-packed." He said, "No problem, I got my car with me." And you know, the judge was, he was kind of, he was already under the influence. And so we loaded up, we headed, and in those days there was no Talmadge Bridge to get to Savannah. You had to go through the refuge over the Houlihan Bridge. And so we loaded up, we went through the refuge, crossed the Houlihan Bridge into Georgia. And on the way to the Bamboo Ranch, there's an elementary school that I don't know how they managed to do this, but 17 goes right through the middle of that elementary school. And they had a police officer. You know, some of you might be old enough to remember, but in the old days, these 10 figures were very popular. They were two-dimensional, they were bigger than life, and they were about 4 inches thick. I've seen them as policemen, I've seen them as a chef with a hat on standing out in front of a restaurant. Well, this one was a crossing guard at the elementary school, and he stood there 24 hours a day. That arm went up, and it went down. And it had a sign that hung from the arm saying, "Drive safely." And so we were on the way to the Bamboo Ranch. We went right by the police officer, and we pulled in, and believe it or not, Fats Domino was playing that night. Yeah, so about 2 o'clock, Fats Domino finished his show, and Lonnie Beach stuck his head around the corner and he said, "Hey, Bo, says you ready to go?" And I said, "Yeah, man." So we all went out and got in the car, and I looked back, there was the judge again. And I'm telling you, I don't know how the judge was walking. He got in his car and he pulled out behind us, but we kind of moved on off from him. And we headed back towards the Savannah River and went by the police officer. He was standing there with his ride safety. And we got just about to the Houlihan Bridge, and the CB radio came on. And it says, breaker, Lonnie, you out there?" And I said, "Lonnie, I believe that's the judge, isn't it?" He said, "Yeah, see what he wants." And I said, "Go ahead, Judge." He said, "Man, great God, you got to come help me. I done run over a police officer." Well, I kind of figured I knew which police officer he had. So we, like I said, "Let's go help him." So we turned around and we pulled up there, and the judge had the police officer on the sidewalk doing artificial respiration. And so I walked up, and I mean, I just couldn't help but kind of take advantage of the situation. And I said, "Judge, is he all right?" He looked up at me just as serious. He said, "I don't think he's going to make it. He's already stiff as a board." So anyway, we were on the road. I loaded him up in the back of the Lonnie Mobile, and we headed out for Memorial Medical Center. And in those days, that was clean across town, And in those days, Memorial's emergency room was just a big loading dock, just like a freight dock, And they had the gurneys lined up at the back door. We pulled up to the back door, and I jumped out, took the police officer, and laid him up on one of those gurneys. Well, at about the same time the judge was driving up, I told him, I said, "Judge, we have put the police officer on that gurney. You stay there with him, and he'll be out to see you shortly." And we got in the car and we drove off. Needless to say, when the judge sobered up, he was looking for us. But I will have to tell you this. There's two good things that happened out of that. Believe it or not, the judge sobered up, cold stone sober, and went on to a very distinguished legal career. Helped a lot of people, I can tell you. And coached Little League baseball, coached Pony League baseball. And he never coached me, but I played against his teams, But really is missed. But anyway, I certainly am grateful for the opportunity to come talk to y'all. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming to the platform.